Welcome back to Dalra Models. So in this video I'm going to be working on the interior for the Lancia 037. So as I'm going on the back to basics on this build, I'm going to start with the basics. So in the instructions you've got call outs for letters and numbers and things. So like J12 there, J13 for the other seat. These relate to the sprues. So you've got a letter for the sprue and then a number for each piece. So you can identify what part you want. So we'll start off by getting some sharp cutters and just nipping the sprue gate, just proud of the piece, so that you've got a bit left over. So we'll work on this one seat for now, and then once it's off the sprue, you can then trim it a little bit if you need to, as you can see I'm doing now. And these are quite big junction points on these pieces, so they take a little bit of extra work. So I've got some files which I picked up at the Telford show. So starting off with a fine one, because I don't need to go really coarse on these parts. Just going to gently brush over it just to get rid of that lump that's left over after the cut, and then go on to the extra fine just to finish it off and smooth it off. So I know a lot of you know how to do this, but I thought as it's a basic build, I'll cover, as I said, cover the basics and my methods for doing things. So just need to clean that bottom one up because I've done that top one now. So same again with the fine file. Just clean it up a little bit. I mean, this part's not going to be seen once it's in the body and everything anyway, but it's still nice to do it properly. And then there's a couple of other bits to pay attention to. So as I mentioned in the unboxing, there's a bit of flash, so that needs carefully removing. So you could use a file again for this, but I'm opting to use the knife blade just to not cut it off, just brush it off really. Just gently sliding the blade across it to remove it. It comes off very easily. Just need to be careful doing this, you don't go too deep and cut through the plastic. So same as with the file, just gently brushing over it really. So onto the next seat. So same process again, I'm leaving a little bit on each piece, so I've just whizzed through these quickly. So these are all of the pieces for step 1 of the instructions that I'm cutting out. So that's all I'm working on in this video. So now that I've got them all cut out, because this is how I generally do it, is I cut all of the pieces out and then tidying them up in one hit. So clean that out. And then next piece, you've got to be careful with things like this. You don't want to remove the fixing points. So you might need to reference your instructions to know which parts are needed to stay and which parts you can cut off. So on the gear stick you've got these mould injection points which need removing. So you find this on some of the pieces that you need to remove things like that, and then on this one you've got a little bit sticking out there that's not part of it either, so carefully nip that off as well. But yeah, if you're ever unsure what you should be removing, it's worth checking your instructions as to what should be there, because the diagrams are normally fairly good. So quick going over with a file on that piece as I did before, so they all get the same treatment on this. First off the fine file and then onto the extra fine, and then you get a nice smooth finish on it. So on the seats there's some excess plastic in the holes for the seat belts, and also a little bit on the backrest there, or on the back of the backrest. So I'm just going to clean that up with a sharp knife blade. Just trim that off carefully. So all of the parts generally need a little bit of clean up in some way or other. I mean, I'm assuming this is a older kit and a bit of an old mould, the amount of flash that's on it. A new kit wouldn't have this much flash on it, So quick tidy up with a file. So it only needs the extra fine, doesn't need anything more than that. And then onto the holes for the seat belts. So it's just a little bit of flash, but it makes a difference cutting out. So brand new blade in the knife, and then just using the tip of it, I'm just carefully going around with the contour for the shape. So it doesn't take a lot to clean these out really. So that's the first one done. As you can see, it makes a big difference. So now the first one's done, move on to the second one, and same again, just the tip of the blade, just working my way around just to clean it all out. Doesn't need a lot. And just get rid of the little bit on the front that's there. So apologies for going off the centre of camera here, but hopefully you can still see what it is that I'm doing. So next bit I needed to do was just a bit of tidying up on the sides of the bit of flash on the sides, and then tidying up the bottoms of the backrests. So these are injection mould points where the liquid plastic is filled from, so they shouldn't be there. So just carefully with a knife, just trimming it off. Just taking a bit of care to keep the blade flat against the actual seat part, so that it doesn't gouge out a part that I don't want. So once it's cut, I can then move on to a file and then sand off the remaining part. So it needs a little bit more on this one, so this is a medium file, because there's a bit of a gap there that I need to sort out. So I'm just sanding it back just to clear the gap. I don't know whether it picks up on camera or not very well. So there you go, you can see it in there where the light is reflecting. Just trying to clean that up a bit. So just sanding away some material, and because it's the bottom of the seats, it's not going to get noticed, it's not going to be seen because of the bulkhead or firewall or whatever you want to call it behind. But from my point of view, I think it's good practice to clean up things like this and do the best you can on each part. If nothing else, it's just good practice for the bits that are seen. So I know some people wouldn't bother, but I like to, and keep it neat and tidy and do the best I can with it. So that's one seat down. So on to the next piece, which is the handbrake. So it's not the easiest bit to do this. I've got to be careful to make sure I don't snap it, because it's quite a thin part, so I'm using my finger to support it as I'm sanding, and then just taking the edge away that it shouldn't be there, just so that it's nice and round, and then get the shape that I want. So pretty much there, just do the tip of it. And just got the top part to do there now. If I can hold it. It's not the easiest thing to hold with it being so small, but we'll get there. So a little bit more clean up, and then onto the extra fine file, sander, whatever you want to call it, and then just do the front bit just to finish off. And then onto this one. So you've got a notch there where it came off the sprue, which the sander doesn't fit in. So I'm just going to very carefully use my blade and just trim it off. And need to be careful here I don't catch the nibs for the fixing points. And then onto the gear stick. So I'm just flying through these now, and not spending a lot of time on video because it's pretty much all the same now. So again, I'm using the blade just to scrape off a little bit of flashing that's on there. It's not a lot. Just a little bit on that bottom corner. And then I can start test fitting. So it's a good idea as you're going along to check all the parts fit properly as they should do. So I've got the 2 fire extinguishers, the kick plate for the co-pilot, co-driver, whatever you want to call him, navigator. So handbrake's going in, and then the gear stick, and check the seats fit. So they're not great fit, these seats, but they do go in. It just takes a little bit of movement to get them to sit where they should be. So that's how it's all going to go. I'm just checking the fit on all of the parts before I go to paint, just to enable me to sort out any problems beforehand. So I've got various ways of fixing things. I've got crocodile clips, reverse pliers, tweezers, double-sided tape. So there's various ways that you can attach the parts to hold them while you're gluing, and I've got various sticks as well. So you just need to work out which is best option for each part. So again, double-sided tape on the bottom of the seats and on the bottom of the interior tub as well. So there we go, all ready to go to the paint booth. So to show you the paint setup that I've got, obviously you've seen the spray booth that I've got in the past, but this is vented out of an open window directly above it, so that all the fumes go straight out. And also I've got a respirator that I use, which is designed specifically for the types of paint that I use. So safety is an important thing to take into account as you're sort of doing things, because you don't want to breathe fumes in too much and stuff. So that's what I've got. So onto the painting. So a bit of grey primer from Zero Paints as I normally use, and then we'll get spraying. So I'm just going to fly through all of these parts as well. I'm not going to spend loads of time with you watching me paint stuff. So as usual, I'm just going through doing light coats to start with, and then I'll build them up afterwards. This coat's just to give it a key, just for the next layers to bite into, and this to actually stick to the plastic, and then you get a good bond for when you actually come to put your paint down. And hopefully if you've got parts that you need to mask off, you're not going to have any problems then with this important part at this level. One of the important steps is getting your primer coats right, because they can come back and bite you and have problems later on. So moving on to the gear stick. And then the kick plate. So as I said, I'm not spending loads of time on the video on these parts, just fly through them. So same process on them all, a light coat of primer to start with. At the moment I'm just trying to get an even coverage on it all, and not heavy. I know people have asked as well about my airbrush. It's a Iwata Revolution CR with a 0.5mm needle in the end. So this is a second coat now, and as you can see it's going down and makes it look a lot darker. So you can see how light that first layer was that I did, which you see this second coat go down. So once that first layer is done, this one will bite into the next layer of primer. So as long as it's dried properly, you shouldn't have any problems. So just doing the second coat on the interior tub now. So the back of where the seats would be, you're not going to see, but again, I like to give it full coverage and do all of these areas. I've been caught out before thinking that an area is not going to be seen, and then you can see it through the windows or something. So I think it's just good practice to make sure you do it all anyway, and then if you've got an area that is seen that you didn't realise, it doesn't really matter because it's painted anyway. So at this point I think that I'm done, and then I thought I better just check the instructions, and what I'm looking at is the back of the firewall, as to if there's another piece that sits between it or not, where the engine would be. So I'm just having a careful look through. We've got a piece there which is the front of the car, so there isn't anything between what I've just painted and the engine, so that means I've got to paint this back part. So as I was saying about making sure you paint areas that you not necessarily think are going to be seen, it's this could have caught me out. I mean, it might not be seen at the end of the day, but it's better to paint it and not need it than to not paint it and then have this eyesore there that you should have done. So I decided to do some experimenting with the seats. So my first attempt didn't go to plan, so this is my second attempt. Looking at reference photos, I thought initially it was carbon Kevlar, but a lot of the reference photos looks more like fiberglass, so I was trying to represent that. So I'll start off with the Alfa Rosso red paint and then pale yellow over it, and it's on a black base as well, this underneath that red, so it's quite dark to start with. So as you can see, I've got the red down, and then I've got the airbrush at a low pressure, and then I'm just misting the yellow over it to give it the sort of look and texture that I'm after and the right colour and everything. So I'm not going heavy at all with it, just very light coat just to cover the red a little bit and have some of the colour seep through. So I said about the airbrush before, this is another airbrush. This is my what I'd call my workhorse, my main one, which is the Iwata HPCS, the Eclipse I think it's called, and that's got 0.35mm needle in it. So for this sort of work it's absolutely fine. So there you go, that's the look I'm going for, and as you might be able to see, it's got a bit of texture to that, so it's exactly what I was looking for. So next up, Tamiya lacquer paint's a new range that a lot of people have been talking about, and I've used them a few times now, and I have to say they are excellent paints. So I thought I'd use this for the fire extinguishers. Unlike zero paints, which I've used in the past for fire extinguishers, these are, with it being a gloss paint to start with, it means that I don't have to clear it. So for things like that, it's quick and easy. So as you can see there, I'm now using Outclad's gunmetal for the main tub, and the instructions say to use silver, but again, reference photos, I'm not convinced. Most of them look sort of darker colour, so I thought I'd go with this. So it's not necessarily 100% right, but use a bit of artistic license and see where we get with it. So not anything special about the way I'm painting that, just get it on there. So next up is Zero Paints Aluminium to do this back panel. So I'm not doing anything special with this, just testing my flow as I normally do, and then just a couple of light passes over it just to get the colour down. So as I said before, you don't want to go heavy with these paints. So the next piece of the puzzle, as they say, for my firewall is to represent the actual material that you would use. And because this is an out of box build, I'm not allowed to use any other aftermarket stuff. So I've opted to make a cardboard template, which I made however many holes you can count in there with a compass, to give me the pattern that I want. And then using the gloss black, I'm just going to spray over that just to try and get the effect that I want. And this is another experimentation. I don't know how it's going to work out or what's going to happen, but I thought I'm just trying various things with this, various techniques and such, to try and get the looks I'm looking for and have a bit more than just a plain surface. Adds a bit of character to it and breaks up the monotony and the solid colours of an out of the box build. So most of this paint's going on the cardboard, so I'm not worrying about how heavy or light it's going or anything. So I think that was my cue for stopping there when it came off the masking tape. So there you go. That's what I've got. So I think through the rear window and everything, hopefully that will give me the look that I'm after. So while the airbrush was loaded up with that paint, I thought I'll do the handbrake, do the gear stick, and I will do the kick plate at the same time. There you go, there's a kick plate. I knew it was coming. So next bit to do is the actual main seats. So I'm just going to mask off the back very quickly as far as the video is concerned, and then push it down with the cocktail stick, and then move on to the side pieces. Same again with the cocktail stick, push it into the corners, and then last one. And then very carefully with my sharp blade, I'm just going to go all the way around it, and I can remove the masking tape. So that's covered the back area, ready for painting the front to protect the colour that I've put down. So for that, I'm going to use this textured paint from Zero Paints, which is the charcoal colour. So again, I've moved back to my Revolution airbrush with the bigger nozzle to allow the stuff to come out, and also crank the pressure up, because it's got bits in it. You need to get as much airflow as you can and as big a nozzle as you can, really, to not have any problem spraying it. So this method seemed to work for me, so that's what I went with. So there's the finished seat. So I don't know whether it picks up on camera very well, the textured look to it. So remove the masking tape and then we can see what it looks like. It's one of my favourite bits, this is removing the masking tape. As long as I've not got any bleed through, I'm happy. And it all looks okay there, which is good. Ooh, drop it. So there you go, that's one seat done and the other one's to follow. So now that I've got all the bits done, as you can see there, the gear stick I'd actually masked off and painted that zero paint steel, which I didn't film that part. So just get the masking tape off there. Which is easier said than done. There we go, that's the main bit off, and then there's just this smaller piece there that's wrapped around just to get rid of. And that one there. And yet another one. So fiddly little thing, but it's got some nice moulded detailing, so I thought it was worth spending the time masking it up to paint it. So I'm going to do a bit of weathering texture now. So with the X11 Tamiya paint, which is their silver, I'm going to do some dry brushing. So dry brushing is about basically having a dry brush. So get most of the paint off on the cloth and then just carefully just catch the edges with the brush just to give the effect that you want. And I want to go for a fairly well used worn look on this, hence going quite heavy on it. So the more paint that you put on, the more wear it's going to look like it's had, and the less you put on, the more subtle it's going to be. But things like that make a difference to your model. As you can see, the left side there compared to the right, it just enhances the raised details a little bit, and catches the shadows a bit more. So it's a nice thing to do on them as you go. Like I said, I'm going quite heavy with this interior. So almost there with it. You can see now though, it's changing the colour because I'm going all over it. It's changing the colour of the base with that gunmetal. It's making it a much lighter colour as well, so it just gives it a different effect. Just do that final sill there. Driver's foot area is probably going to get a lot of traffic, so I wanted to go a bit heavier there just to give that very used, worn, kicked around look. So, and then with a much smaller brush, I'm just doing that spring at the bottom of the gear selector, bottom of the gear stick, just to bring out the details on it. So moving on, I've got some titanium gold, which I'm just going to pick out the top of that spring, just for where the clamp would be. Just carefully brush around that. And it's these little details that make a difference, and even with a basic kit, a bit of careful detail painting makes all of the difference with these things. So the other thing I was going to do was pick out some bolt heads, and there aren't any moulded in on the kit, but they are visible in reference photos. So I'm using the paint to make those. So I've got two on the top and then one on each corner of the actual bottom part. Hopefully these will show up once it's all done. So hopefully you can see those as I'm doing it. It's very, very fine brush I've got, and just taking my time and being careful that I don't slip or do anything silly. So I just get a dot rather than a line, and also make sure I get it centered at the point that I want. So that's that piece done. So then I've got some XF1 to pick out the buttons. So do this after I've dry brushed it, because then they're not going to get any silver paint on them, and then they look more like buttons than getting blended in with the rest of it. So just pick those out carefully. And then onto the fire extinguishers. So although the band is raised on these, I chose to mask them off because my hands are shaking quite a lot for some reason. So I didn't want to make a mess, so I opted to mask them off and allow myself to have nice clean lines around it. So 2 on each fire extinguisher to do. And then there's the 2 end points as well to paint on, and then final unmasking of that. And hopefully I've got some nice sharp lines. So then the next bit to do is the decals. So there's 1 on each fire extinguisher. So working out which ones I want, 54 and 55. So get everything out of the way, and then I can carefully cut around them. And this is the first chance I've had to use the decal, so with something like this it gives me the opportunity to see what they're like and how they're going to respond to things. So last thing you want is to get to your bodywork first time using decals, find that it starts splitting and breaking and having problems. So being able to use some smaller decals on these less significant parts gives you an opportunity to see if you're going to have any problems down the line and how they're going to react to certain solutions and whether they've got any damage or anything like that. So I've got some warm water in a jar, and then with some tweezers I will give it a quick dunk and then place it on the mat. I see a lot of people leaving the decals soaking in the water for ages, and it's unnecessary, and if anything causing more problems. All you need to do is get moisture into the backing paper to allow the decal to then be released. But what you don't want to do is wash all of the glue off, because then it won't stick. And by soaking it too long, that's a risk that you run, and then you'll have problems with your decal. So this is all you need to do, is just get it on, get some water in it, and then get it on the mat, and then you'll be able to test it. As you can see there, just checking that it's moving. And then once I know that it's moving, I can apply it to where I want to go. So I've got those both out of the way. So next thing to pay attention to is the driver that you want to go with. So you've got 2 options, 1 and 2, depending which driver you want. So you've got to make a decision and then stick with your decision, and it's going to follow the car all the way through. When you come to the numbers and all the rest of it, and names on the windows or wherever they are on this particular car. So same again, I've got the seat belts, all got water on them, a bit of microset down under the decal, and then get the decals down. And I hate these decals. I hate decals for seat belts because they just look rubbish, but on this kit I haven't got a lot of choice. So I'm just working with what I've got. So there's various things that you can do. I've heard people say that they leave it on the backing paper and cut the backing paper out and then paint the edges and the back and everything to give it a bit more 3-dimensional look to it and stuff. But I'm just going to go with it and leave it at that. Okay, so I'm using Super Gold Plus from Bob Smith Industries for gluing all the interior parts together. It's the thicker version of the glue. The white lid is thinner, but it doesn't fog or leave any marks or anything like that, so it's perfect for sort of final parts. So handbrake's gone in, there's the gear selector that I need to glue. So I'm putting the glue in the hole rather than on the part, because from experience from years ago, when I used to put glue on the part and then try and fit it, if you slip or something, or it doesn't quite go in properly, then you end up getting glue all over the place. So I tend to glue where I can the hole, because it means that it's going to make less mess if you don't get it in first time. So quick rearrange, because I've got it slightly turned the wrong way. So first fire extinguisher is going in, which unfortunately I went off camera a bit for, but I think you get the point with that. And then glue for the next one, and then get that in the two holes. So a little bit tight fit because there's now paint in all of the holes, so when I did the test fit at the beginning it all fit, there's obviously no paint, so it's worth test fitting everything again anyway after paint, just in case you've got holes that are filled up to the point where they don't fit. Last thing you want is to then start trying to force it and something break, or you make a mess and get glue everywhere and stuff like that, so it's always good practice. So on the seats, if you may have just spotted underneath, numbered, so the instructions specify which one to use on which side, because they've got different decals on, one for the driver and one for the co-driver. So I was just checking my references to make sure that I was using the right one in the right space there. So that's my finished part nearly. I want to do a bit more weathering with some AK weathering tools, which I'll do off camera. So there's the final result after I've done that. So I'll put a link in the description to a previous video where I did it on the sleeker exterior, on the process that I used for that. So there you go, that's what it looks like now. So there you go, that's the interior tub finished. So thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you next time.